Hey dudes, and welcome back to the Bantz. As always, I am your host, the Bantz. And it's once again Friday, another end of the week, so it's time for our second and final What's Happening in Fashion this week, so let's just get right into it. And first up, of course, we have our headlines for the day. And in our first headline of the day, Jerry Lorenzo just announced his Fear of God personalization program, so let's talk about it. There isn't a lot of information at this point in time, but basically the gist of what he was trying to say was that for X amount of money, and obviously this is Fear of God, so we're talking a large X amount of money, he will basically embroider or hand stitch or something along those lines pieces with names or symbols or letters on them for whoever's willing to cash out. And all I really gotta say about this is, damn Jerry, you really hit a new fucking low, haven't you? And I mean, I totally get why he's doing this. I mean, when your brand is basically dead because you have no design ideas outside of stealing other people's designs, and then when that dries up you just make really expensive basketball shorts, of course you're going to turn to something like this. Like, why even go through the time and effort of stealing other people's designs when people will actually pay you to put their own creativity into your hands just so you can sell it back to them? And do I think this will work? I mean, maybe. I mean, when you think about it, the people that really ever bought into his brand in the first place were one of three categories: children, fuckboys, and the nouveau riche, aka the Chinese. And now that his ship has sailed in the sense that it's not in style anymore and people are understanding how trash it is, there still will always be a few handful of people that will always just eat up his crap, eat up whatever garbage he makes. And those people would probably be willing to cash out in this scenario. So will he make a fortune off of it? Probably not. But then again, he'll probably make enough to at least get by, or I don't know, buy a couple of his own expensive basketball shorts. But hey, even as I say that, the Instagram post where he announced this has already been taken down. So maybe people are actually getting to him, and maybe people are actually finally tired of his shit. And of course, I have to finish off this Fear of God story with every way I finish off any Fear of God story, and that's with a fuck you, Jerry. Just go fuck yourself. Alright, and now moving on to our second headline of the day. Brand Bape showed off finally their 25th anniversary capsule collection, and honestly, I just can't help but be disappointed. But let's start off just by talking about the collection itself. In all honesty, it's not terrible. I do think that some of the t-shirts unfortunately are a little bit bland, especially kind of the Bape head with the quote logo. I understand it's a staple, but even so, it's just been done so many times in recent history that it's just kind of whatever now. Aside from that, I'm not a huge fan of the accessories. They kind of just feel tacked on, aside from the clocks, but even then they're a little bit more on the boring side. But I do have to say, although I've seen a lot of people kind of talk shit about it, I personally do like the city camo. Sure, the idea in and of itself isn't anything new by any means, but even so, the way they kind of did it here, and they kind of implemented it using different colors and then intermingling the Bape heads in along with it. In all honesty, as far as different camos go, especially with lettering in them, this is probably some of the best I've ever seen. But does it help out the collection? Unfortunately, no. It's already kind of an collection. At the very least, this does help it bump it up a little bit in my eyes. But even with all that said, that's not even what makes this capsule, this line, disappointing. What makes it disappointing is the fact that we're talking about one of the brands, if not the original streetwear brand in many people's minds, especially out of Japan. There's obviously other ones that came before. There's Stussy, there's Good Enough, there's things like that. But even so, the fact that we have the brand that kind of started it all, that has been around even longer than Supreme has, that it's fallen off this hard is just so fucking sad. I mean, really, how many brands actually make it to 25 fucking years? And to give me less than 25 pieces, along with no collaborations whatsoever. I mean, Chris Gibbs got over 30 collaborations just for opening a store in Tokyo. Just for opening a store, not because of a decade or 2 decades or 25 years. And you're telling me that you couldn't bring anybody back. You couldn't bring Pharrell, you couldn't bring Kanye, you couldn't bring Verbal, you couldn't bring any of the other Teriyaki Boys, you couldn't bring Cause, like, you couldn't even bring Nigo back for just one fucking capsule collection? Cause this is just so fucking sad, man. Obviously, yes, Bape has fallen off in the last decade since Nigo's been gone. That's no secret to anybody. But I was really hoping, especially with some of the other capsule collections they've done in the past, like their kind of luxury black collection and their indigo collections, that we'd see something really freaking cool here. But when I see this and the amount of effort this brought for a 25th anniversary collection, I really can't help but think that there's nowhere else but downhill for Bape from this point on. But unfortunately, ending on that sad note, let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, Friedrich Kunath showed off some of his newest paintings from his newest exhibit, which is currently going on now in Belgium. And honestly, some great surreal paintings. If that sort of thing is up your alley, I definitely check this out. Then both Juxtapose and Hypebeast put up their own image galleries of the Beyond the Streets exhibit now going on in LA, which really, if you have time to get in there and see it, definitely go. It's going on until I believe mid-June, but if you can't make it out there, then definitely enjoy some of these photos. Then artist 2501 showed off some of his newest paintings, and honestly, if you find yourself a fan of different ways of applying paint to canvas or just different textures in general, definitely check these out, definitely worth a look. And lastly, Juxtapose put up a nice little gallery of some of Gatz's new works, which once again, if you're a fan of patterns and paintings done on a bunch of different mediums, definitely worth checking out as well. Alright, and now with our art stories done, let's move on to our fashion for today. And first up, and even though by now this is old news, we're still going to talk about it, Supreme just released one of their newest collaborations, this time with Hellraiser, and I actually think it's decent. Now, let's just go over this quickly because all of you understand pretty much how I feel about Supreme by this point in time. But even so, there are some standout pieces in here. I do think the coat with the all-over print is pretty decent. I do think some of the shorts and pants are pretty good as well too. And the jerseys, the hockey-style jerseys, was actually kind of pleasantly surprised because who would have thought that Supreme was putting effort into anything nowadays? So at the very least, when it comes down to it, Supreme actually did somewhat of a decent job here when they actually put some time and effort into it. Who knew? At the very least, colored me surprised. Then brand CP Company showed off their Fall/Winter 2018 lookbook, and honestly, I thought there were some pretty cool ideas in there. Now, even for being so highly regarded as a techwear company, I do really like a lot of the use of different textiles in here. I mean, aside from just the normal polyesters and nylons that we see in so many techwear pieces, here we see some cottons, some wax canvas, some denim, and even some leather, which personally I find a little bit refreshing. Yes, there is a lot of use of color in here, which I'm not really a fan of, as I've said many times before in techwear, but even so, I can at least agree on the fact that the colors are very toned down, very muted here, and don't really ruin the essence of the pieces. These colors are much more Stone Island than they are what Acronym just recently did. But even with all these different colors and materials and fabrics, we still do see what CP Company does best, and that is those aesthetics and details that make up a really technical techwear piece. Some really nice solid zippers and bags and things along those lines. And in all honesty, seeing as that these are some of the originators, creators of the techwear style, seeing them still continuously doing so well in this day and age is really respectable in my mind. And can we all just take a minute to appreciate how fucking sick that goggle balaclava is? Because that's one of the coolest techwear pieces I have seen in a long fucking time. So if you have been looking for some nice techwear pieces that are maybe a little bit different off the cuff than what you've normally seen and won't break the budget compared to a lot more of those highly technical pieces, definitely check out this collection. Definitely worth a look. Then Nike and Nike Lab both showed off their newest ACG Spring Summer 2018 collections, and I think overall, pretty good job. Now, starting with the Nike collection, we're just going to cover this quickly because there's really not a lot here, but even so, some really nice quality pieces. You can definitely see that there's some nice materials, nice stitching, nice detailing, and there's some really nice pops of color too. But even so, all I can really see here out of this collection is nothing more than just a Gyakuso light. I mean, no offense to anybody at Nike or ACG, but it's just, who can really beat Takahashi when it comes to running equipment? Seriously. But then moving on into the Nike Lab collection is where the real fun starts to begin. I mean, just overall fantastic job. We have some really nice zipper detailing, some really nice use of hidden pockets and compartments and things along those lines, and some really nice graphic detailing that doesn't oversaturate the piece and actually flows pretty nicely with the designs in hand. Yeah, it's a little bit on the bright side for techwear, but when it comes to Nike, I don't really have a problem with it because that's really kind of what they've always done, especially with ACG. They've never been afraid of color. And so if you are a fan of techwear and are looking for some really solid pieces with some really up-to-date materials in some really bold colorways, definitely worth checking this out as well. And lastly, and honestly, just a quick little side note, if you happen to live in the LA or Southern California area, Visvim just opened up their newest pop-up shop in Santa Monica, so definitely go check it out if you've never seen a Visvim pop-up before. Yes, it is technically their women's line, it's the WMV collection, but all I gotta say is, hey, fuck it. If you want to see some really nice quality clothing, go check it out. Bring your girl along, show her what actually good clothing looks like for once. I don't know, make up some excuse to go. But either way, it's there. Go check it out. Very cool stuff and really worth looking at. Okay, and lastly, let's talk about our articles for the day. And first up, Heddles put out a very nice introductory piece on the 4 most common types of fabric printing, things such like silk screening, discharge, things like that. And if you've ever wanted to get into making designs, especially graphic designs on clothing, definitely give this a look. It's very insightful if you're new to the ideas here. Then Vogue put out a very insightful article based on this idea of what has happened in the 5 years since the Rana Plaza collapse. And for those of you who don't know what happened, basically, I believe it was in Bangladesh, there was a factory that collapsed because conditions were just so poor that over 1,000 people died and thousands of people were injured as well. And they really kind of go into what happened since then, what this has sparked as far as the fashion industry goes, and how transparency has become super important, or at least sprouted in the minds of many individuals in and outside of the fashion industry, and how more companies are working to work on that transparency, I guess you could say. So if ethics or transparency or just the human element of fashion is your thing, I would definitely give this article a read. Very insightful to see where we've gone from then to now. Then Vice sat down for a quick little interview with Raf Simons and Ruby Sterling, just to kind of mull over some of their ideas and what they've been up to recently. So if you're interested in either of those designers or want to learn a little bit more about their ideologies, I'd definitely give this a look. And lastly, Highsnobiety put out a very detailed article on 4 ways that sneaker brands basically build hype for their products. And especially when we're talking about sneakers and just how influential sneakers have been over the last couple of decades, this is a very cool article. I mean, they really go into a lot of detail talking about certain ideas that you may or may not have thought of in the past, and it's really eye-opening to it if you're especially a fan of fashion business. So if you are a person in the fashion business, or maybe marketing or anything along those lines, or maybe you're just interested in sneakers in general, then I would definitely read this very cool article. Alright guys, and with that we reach the end of our second and final whiff for the week. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, if you guys want to read any of the articles I talked about today or see some more images that I wasn't able to include in the video, I've linked everything in the description down below. And if you are new to the channel, welcome guys. We do these what's happening in fashion videos twice a week, every Monday and Friday. So if you are a fan and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, if you just have any questions or comments, concerns, or just want to talk fashion in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments down below. I'm always willing to talk fashion. And with that guys, thank you once again for watching these videos and supporting my content. I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend, and as always, until next time.